How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs co-beat writer on SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. And, I've seen a lot of talk about the Kansas City Chiefs since their loss against the Denver Broncos. A lot of narratives saying that their dynasty is over, saying that their chances in the AFC West have just completely fallen apart. And they might not even make the playoffs by the way that they're playing right now. This is their second 2-game losing streak in a row, or of the season rather. And even when you think that they've got a little bit momentum going, they hit the brakes real hard. It's an interesting season to cover for Kansas City, primarily coming off of their 3 back-to-back Super Bowl appearances and winning 2 of those 3. However, going into the second half of the season, there is a way for Kansas City to still make the playoffs. And, going against contrary to belief, rather, it is important, very important to know that the path might be a little bumpy and not smooth sailing as it once was. But there's still a way for Kansas City to make the playoffs. And there's still a way that they're going to try. I've seen a lot of the narrative going around of saying, oh, maybe these guys, in the human brain, they don't want to compete for the playoffs because they already have their championships. At the end of the day, these guys are uber competitive. They know that they are paid to do this and try their best to get out there and get a victory for not only the franchise in which they represent, but also the city that they represent. That being said, going into the second half of the season, I've got 3 names in my mind that I think need to have a step up back end of the season. If they are able to make the playoffs, it'll come from these 3 players. So without further ado, let's dive into it. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Rashee Rice. Now, you might be thinking, Rashee Rice, there's no reason as to why that he should be a player that's on this back end of the list. I would beg to differ. Not saying that his production hasn't been elite since he's returned to Kansas City after serving those 6-game suspensions due to his involvement off of the field with that multi-car crash way before they even got him into this mess. At the end of the day, this guy is their best wide receiver, and you didn't have him for the majority of the first half of the season. Through the 4 games that he's played, though, he's had 26 receptions and 253 receiving yards. The back end of the season needs to be elite for Rashee Rice, if that means anything, if he wants to walk into or really help for Kansas City to make the playoffs. It starts with him, because I've alluded to this several times before, and I would say that several people agree with me. Rashee Rice is by far the Kansas City Chiefs' best wide receiving option when healthy, and he's proven it. Before he got injured last season in those 4 games, he had 288 receiving yards, which was on pace, and only did it in 24 receptions, might I add. It was on pace to probably be a top-end wide receiver for the National Football League down the line. He got hurt. Things happen. Now we look at it now that he is removed. 2025, 26 receptions, 35 targets. He hasn't had a very explosiveness to him, but that's fine. You also have to keep in mind that Rashee Rice, when he's going, things go for Kansas City, especially offensively. He's been a lot of small gains. He's averaging about 9.7 yards per reception. He's got 15 first downs and 1 fumble this season. So there's definitely areas for him to improve on going into the latter half of the campaign, especially because if he's on, Patrick Mahomes will feel more comfortable. It would also open up so many different things for other receiving options, knowing that there are going to be a world where you can not just throw to Rashee Rice and have confidence in other areas of the offense. Another piece, the second piece that I believe needs to have a strong back end of the season is Isaiah Pacheco for multiple reasons. I alluded to this yesterday. If you watched that podcast, he was one of the names that I dropped, saying that if Kansas City should come to a realization where they don't want to bring back Rashee Rice, it might be fine if they let him go. If he wants to correct my thought process on that, it will purely come from the back end of the campaign. Now, you've got to know, obviously, Isaiah Pacheco, he's a former 7th-round pick. He's 26 years old. He will be 27 when next season starts. And this season, he hasn't necessarily had the best year. Once again, he does have a little bit more production than he did last season in 7 games, as this year he's got 8 games under his belt and 329 rushing yards. But the real thing that stands out is that he's not averaging a whole lot of yards per reception, 4.2, which ranks as the second lowest in his career. He's only got the 1 touchdown. He's got 21 first downs, and his longest rush of the season was 16 yards. Going for a guy going into a very big contract season, knowing that there's an open possibility that Kansas City can have a way to fill in this running back role. If he still wants this job, he's definitely going to have to show it in the back half of the year. His best game by far this season came against the Washington Commanders. He had 12 carries, 58 rushing yards, and while he didn't score a touchdown, his longest was 13 rushing yards in a carry. So there are areas for him to improve on, but I know specifically Kansas City as the run game entirely needs to improve if they want to succeed. That's on the offensive side of the football. A guy that I think has to be a very big piece on the defensive side of the football if this franchise has any means of getting themselves back into the playoffs is Chris Jones. Now, Chris Jones, I've heard a lot of people say, he's not the same player that he once was. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer one day. And since 2016, he has been everything that the Kansas City Chiefs organization has asked him to be. He's been there. He shows up. He's elite. He's strong. He's big. He's fast. He can do it all. But this season, he hasn't necessarily looked like the Chris Jones that I think people have become accustomed to. I've talked about this before in the past, and it's not a dig at Chris Jones as the person or the player. He's still, like I said, going to be a Hall of Famer. But this season, you have to look at this season. You can't look at the past because they're so heavily judged on the production that they had in the past. This season, he hasn't been very good. In 10 games, he's got 15 total tackles and 3 quarterback sacks. If the season were to end today, this would be his lowest amount of quarterback sacks in his career other than his rookie year. And he's having 15 total tackles is the lowest amount in his career as well. He does have 5.5 stuffs and 4 stuff yards, but there is a clear need for him to step up on the defensive side of the football, because if he's on his game, you have best believe that the Kansas City Chiefs defensively will be on their game. He is the CEO for a reason, and he's going to be a big impact player, or needs to be, if Kansas City has any hopes of making their way into the playoffs. Because I've said it before, I'll say it again. While right now it looks bleak for Kansas City to get in, until they are officially eliminated, you've got to hold out hope if you're a Chiefs fan because of the past that they have had. I know we just said you can't look at the past and how it impacts each season, but at the end of the day, this team knows how to win. They have a coaching staff that knows how to win. They have an offense who knows how to win, and they have a defense led by one of the best defensive coordinators in the National Football League history. It's hard to count them out unless things go their way. That being said, be sure you follow me over on X at Dom Minchella. Post and repost every single day. You're not going to want to miss any coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs while we go into Week 12, which they will be hosting the Indianapolis Colts, a Colts team led by Daniel Jones. It should be a fun little matchup for them, hopefully to get back into the win column in front of Chiefs Kingdom. You can also follow us over at KC Chiefs on SI, where everything is completely free, both on X and Facebook. You do not want to miss any Kansas City Chiefs coverage, because Kansas City Chiefs on SI is the place to get your Kansas City Chiefs news. As always, folks, be kind to one another. I'll see you tomorrow.